Ever wanted to wrap text around a spinning glove without Blender, plugins, or After Effects? You could do it right here in DaVinci Resolve using Fusion. I'll show you how to do it under 10 minutes, really 5 minutes, but we have several options. Let's jump in. I'm starting with a Fusion composition. First, we'll bring in our text and build a 3D environment so it can curve naturally around a sphere. So let's begin with a blank Fusion composition. So let's head to Effects and we are going to use Fusion composition. You could also use adjustment clip. Okay, so let's drag Fusion composition down to our timeline and we are going to select that Fusion composition and let's head to Fusion. Okay, so we are going to start with a simple way of curving a text in a spherical form. First of all, let's bring in a regular text. Okay, and let's put the text to the viewer and let's just type in here around the word. As you know, on a regular text, we could go to the layout and we could change the type. All right. So we could change the type to circle and you have that. All right. And you could switch, you could play with this. Okay. Play with how we want this. All right. So let's head back to point. And that's not a 3D effect, but that's going to come in play later on down the line. So what we're going to do here is we are going to bring in a shape 3D node. All right. So now we are going into the 3D world because going around the globe is going to require a 3D space. All right. So, shift space bar and we are going to bring in shape 3D. So we are going to put shape 3D here. Okay, so let's zoom in so we could see. So this is around the world in a 3D space. So on the default, the shape type is on the plane and we could go to the inspector, controls, shape, and we are going to change this to fair. And voila, this is now spherical. Okay, it's now in a spherical shape. And also it is on a 3D plane. All right. And from here, you could go to transform. Okay. And you could change the size. Okay. You could also head to text. All right. And you could increase the text here. And when you increase it on the text, it's going to wrap more around that globe. All right. Okay. So you could always head to transform and you could change your rotations here. So of course, if you wanted to spin, you could animate the spin. So let's do that right here real quick. Okay, so you could simply animate from here, let's say to 40. And let's say we want it something like this. So if you play it, that's simply going to rotate and animate. All right. If you want to spin continuously, you could go to spline and do just that. All right. So this is the most basic way to do this. Okay. And of course, if you wanted to spin around an object, you could introduce a new object. So let's do that right now. Let's say I wanted to spin around, let's say a background, a red background. That could be anything. Let me get a rectangular shape here. If you're going to bring in a shape, remember you are bringing in a shape to a 3D plane. So you're going to have to convert this to a 3D space. And to do that, we are going to introduce another node, which is image plane 3D. All right. So because without this, you cannot connect this to shape 3D. All right. Because it's not going to translate. So what we're going to do, we are going to connect this to image plane 3D. And now we have introduced that to a 3D space. And now you could view both the shape and the text together. Now you have the ability to resize and reshape the text and the image plane. We could go to transform and scale it up. You could scale it up however you wanted to, and you could reshape the size. And of course, you could animate this to spin around however you wanted to. So this is your first options. So we are done with this one right here, which is just wrapping the text around an object. So we are done with this one. So let us head to the next one, which is wrapping a text around a globe. First of all, let us go and create a sphere with a plane object. For example, let's head to my media pool, and I have this plane object. This is a plane Earth. Okay, so we all know the Earth is spherical. So we are going to try to turn this plane Earth into a spherical Earth. So it's very similar to what we did with the text, same principle. So what we could do here is we could bring it down shape 3D, just like we did on with the text. All right. So let's put this to the viewer. So as usual, when you head to the inspector, the shape type is plane, and we are simply going to change the shape type to sphere. And now that plane object is now a spherical object. All right. So now we have a spherical Earth. So the next step is obviously we want to wrap the text around it. So the first option, if we go back to it, let's head back to the first one. The first one, we had a regular text. Okay, so this is a regular text. So on this one, we are going to try to use 3D text. So we are going to introduce 3D text, and we are going to connect it to the node tree. Now we have a merge 3D. What we're going to do now is we are going to head to 3D text inspector, and we are going to type in the same thing around the world. Okay, so let's put this around the text. Let's even put it with the globe. All right, so of course we have like a straight text here. There's no curve, there's no spherical. But first, let's get a 3D text going here. Let's put a depth. Okay, so let's say that's the depth that we want. So the next thing we're gonna do here is we are going to turn this to a text. No, let's turn this to a circle. All right, let's go in here and see what's going on here. So this looks like a 2D plane, all right? And here we are in 3D space. Okay, obviously we could increase the width space here. In order to do that, we could change the rotations and stuff like that. So let's try using 90 degrees here. Okay, and we are gonna go to transform. Let's try using minus 90 here too. And now we got something like this. Okay, so let's head back to layout, and we could increase the size, width size. All right, so let's go to globe. Let's make this 2. Okay, let's make this 2.5. All right, so that's just a little way around that 2D plane look to convert it to a 3D plane look. Now we have stuff like this. Okay, so the more you increase this text, the more it's going to wrap around the globe. And here we are. And if you want to animate the rotations around the globe, we could go to transform, and we could play with the Y axis. All right. So let's do a little animations here. It's simple animation, just like we did in the first one. Click on animation, and we head to where we want the animation to end. And we could put any angle that we want to. I just picked a random number, like this is 425. All right. And of course we will play. Of course, you could always just put 360 and head over to spline, and we could set relative or set loop. So that way it's gonna keep rotating depending on how you want your animation to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this tutorial. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will catch you on the next video. Peace.